Our breaking news this hour, a massive anti-government protest is raging on Taksim Square in central Istanbul over a high-level corruption scandal that's already forced the Prime Minister to reshuffle the cabinet. Earlier, an RT crew was caught in the middle of that demonstration when police used tear gas on protesters. One of our crew, Sarah Firth, our correspondent there, joins us now live. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you safe and well tonight. Is that face-off continuing?
It is. When we left the street, those protesters still clashing with the police, and we saw the police deploying their water cannon, we saw tear gas used. The central gathering had been in Taksim Square earlier on this evening, but police had been trying to keep these disparate groups pushed back off the side streets, and that's when we saw things really getting quite nasty indeed. At one point, we ended up in a stairwell where the protesters had barricaded the doors to try and keep that tear gas from coming in, and we actually had a chance to speak to some of them about exactly why they were coming out. And what you could hear on the streets tonight were those chants of thieves, corruption, and of course all of that coming on the back of what we've seen over the past couple of days and weeks with that corruption probe. Now, the Prime Minister Erdogan really coming on very defensively over this, saying it was a foreign conspiracy, but the protesters having absolutely none of that whatsoever, and so really a lot of anger that we saw playing out on the streets this evening.
Has there been any comment from the Prime Minister Erdogan, yet or not?
Well, he's spoken very strongly against this, and of course we've seen those big political wranglings taking place. We've seen a number of high-level resignations, one calling for the Prime Minister himself to resign. He's really come down very hard, and you could see that echoed, I think, in the police response tonight. Right from the very start, there was a very heavy police presence there, and they were very strong in their response to the protesters. And I think that really does reflect the nervousness that the Prime Minister is going to be feeling right now, because bear in mind, whilst the protests and the scenes that you've seen tonight, not new over the past year for Istanbul, we've seen that played out time and again, but as those protests have developed, as the message that the protesters are sending has developed, so too has the challenge that the Prime Minister faces. And of course, if you take it in context of what we've seen with that political drama unfolding around the Prime Minister with that corruption probe, added to that the anger on the streets tonight, and you've really got a very serious challenge to his leadership indeed, and a lot of people are going to be watching very closely to see whether or not he can weather this latest storm. Yeah,
just briefly, what I was talking about, was there any comment about what's been happening this evening? Because we were expecting this protest to happen, we were expecting some face-offs, weren't we? I mean, is the thought that he is going to stay in office at the end of all this if these protests continue?
Well, it's really uncertain at the moment. We've heard talk today of possible snap elections. Remember, next year you've got the elections. Everyone now asking whether he can hold out that long. The protesters certainly adamant that they're not going to back down. And you could see the anger tonight when they were clashing with the police. They feel that the government meddling in areas such as the police, the judiciary, really isn't tolerable. And so they said that they're going to keep fighting. But certainly in his time in power, it's been it's safe to say the most serious challenge that he's had to his leadership. And so whilst he's making all these political decisions, whilst we've seen those high-level resignations, it's really uncertain whether or not he will actually be able to ride this one out. And certainly, as we've seen playing out on the streets tonight, a huge amount of anger.
Sarah, nice to see you. Thank you very much for bringing us to the update there. Sarah Firth speaking to us, our correspondent.